And welcome to the One More Thing podcast. Today I'm joined with two PhDs. Buy one, get one free here. So Pastor Larry and Pastor Troy. How you guys doing today?
Doing well.
Awesome. First, I wanted to point out it was this was the first time you guys have done a dialogue. Obviously, you guys talk all the time on the One More Thing, but this was the first time that you guys dove in together on stage. How did you feel talking? Did it feel natural? Did it feel a little...
I thought it was easy, very natural.
Good.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. I know a lot of people can be intimidated by you just as far as your PhD and your knowledge. So I know that can sometimes be intimidating.
Troy is too.
I know it was it was intimidating for me when I was up there with you.
He's intimidated by my arms.
That's right.
But you guys did an excellent job. It was super comfortable and relaxing, and it was really great to watch. So let's dive into this weekend. You spoke about the lame man being healed, asking, do you want to be healed? And I know that you wanted to explore a little bit deeper into John. So I wanted to start with you.
Yeah, Troy and I were discussing this already. And but one of the interesting things about John, there's always an underlying meaning. So what you get on face value, sometimes it's not just literal versus metaphor, but he's trying to teach us some things. So you go back and say, well, when was the Gospel of John used? What was its function? What was going on when John wrote his gospel, because there were some specific historical things happening of which he was addressing. And the book of John is thought, it was an older man in his 90s. He was probably the youngest guy on the disciple team. And so he's writing from a life of reflection. And as he does, he begins to use more numbers that mean things. He's a Jewish guy, so he knows. And if you were to ask a Jewish guy, what does significant about the number 5? What do you think, Troy? What do you think he would say?
The number 5?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not sure of 5, but like 6 would be humanity. 7 would be like completion or rest. But every number had a significance to it.
Most Jewish guy would think 5. Oh, Torah.
Torah, that's right.
Okay.
The law. I mean, the first 5 books of the Bible, the Torah, this is our sacred scripture. So it's interesting that in this story, it takes place at Bethesda. And I've been there. Every time I've been to Jerusalem, I've been there. And I've actually taught this devotional at that scene, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
But you look down and there's 5 columns.
That's right.
Okay.
So why is it important that there are 5 columns? Was there really 5 columns? We don't know. There could have been 10 or 15, but John's saying there's 5. So you begin to say, John, why are you referring to this number for the Torah? And why is it that everyone who is in this 5-column area is crippled, paralyzed, can't see, every kind of physical infirmity? They're all gathering in this 5 pillars. And some theologians would say it's because Jesus is looking there, and John wants us to know it's symbolic, saying these 5, the things that the law does, it cripples, it maims. There is no healing in the law. That the Torah is incomplete. It will never do what is necessary to bring life.
Wow,
it's a static thing. So John is trying to give us this little insight,
Right.
and saying, all these people are here. How long have you been here? 38 years. Will come up. I'm going to make an example of you. And then once he does that, the big kickback are the teachers of the law. You can't do this. Why? Because it's the Sabbath. He said, God works 7 days a week.
That's right.
God never rests,
Right.
and neither do I.
Right.
When it comes to pulling people out of damaged circumstances, including the law which cannot heal. And Paul talks about that too.
Yeah.
The law just brings us to a place where it doesn't do what it needs to do. So it's fun to look at that and say, there's just so much more here.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
the symbolism, and in the early Jewish synagogues, that's when Christianity was taught within the synagogue. And he's teaching these Jewish guys. At the same time, John, this gospel is being read in these synagogues. You go, holy cow.
Yeah.
This was powerful to them, and we just get the story at face level and think it's a great story. But when you start looking underneath it, you go, wow, there is so much more he was saying that is beyond the story. Wouldn't you agree?
Right. Absolutely. I think that's one thing a lot of people don't recognize was the fact that some of these gospel accounts were actually read in the synagogue. Christianity and Judaism were
Yeah.
were interlocked
Right.
together until Christianity was outlawed and removed. So
Right.
Jewish people would have been the primary audience of listening to these stories.
So what would be the purpose? I mean, because there's a lot to unpack there. What would be the purpose of almost writing in code, or writing to where it's like only the Jewish people that understand culture would understand this?
I don't think it's code. When you're a guy that's that you're reading this in the Jewish, right after they read the law, you read this.
Yep.
And there's a guy that was in the 5 colonnades.
That's right.
And and he was, and all the sickness lies within this damaged religious system. Now, here's the good teaching we didn't bring out: is what is the damaged religious systems today? And we've deconstructed a lot around the fundamentalism and evangelical Christianity, and of which all of us came out of. And but there is something that it does not. There's no power in the transaction.
That's right.
It's in the transformation comes in the connection with God on a more intimate level, and understanding the Spirit of God is alive everywhere. It's all around us at all times. We just have to have eyes. He who has eyes, let him see, because it's there. Just open your eyes and have a look.
So, but I mean, as far as like this story, just why not just say don't focus on the law, focus on these things, as opposed to writing it within the story like that?
Well,
Almost like this, like you knew that the number 5 represented the Torah. Why not just come out and say it?
Well, in the beginning was the Logos. I mean, that's asking someone who wrote a novel or any work why you wrote it, and why you use it's a literary style.
Right.
The parables are the same way, non-confrontational. I'm not smacking you in the face saying, "Stupid, this is what you should do."
Right.
Yeah.
But it's saying, "He who has ears, let him hear. Listen to what I'm saying." And John, after a life of reflection, is saying, and this is one of the signs. Why doesn't he call them miracles? Because he's John. He calls them signs. There's
right.
7 I am sayings in John. He specifically teaches in a different style. Why does he always have an underlying meaning? Because that's just who John is.
Gotcha.
He's trying to teach always. There's 2 levels of meaning in John: the surface, and you got to look for that which is deeper. And if you don't see it, you need to dig a little more, because John writes in a 2-layer thing.
Yeah, and I think another reason would be that multi-layered aspect of John would be, to the Jewish ear who hears, they would have immediately recognized it. But to the Gentile, they would have focused on, wow, the power of Christ is powerful enough to heal even a man lame 38 years. So it's accomplishing the same outcome, but the different ears of hearing would have associated it in very different ways, but the outcome would have been the same.
Yeah.
So,
That's really cool.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
and I don't. The question, why would he do this, is a good question. But the answer, I think that's a very good answer.
Yeah.
You're getting. I'm telling you one story, and I'm hitting 2 audiences at 2 different levels. But today, in the 21st century, we don't get the second level unless someone brings it out to us.
Right.
And even then, it doesn't have it's not as focused or sharp or pointed to us as it would be to that group in that day.
Yeah.
And I think there's a big denial of modern evangelicalism that does not see itself as that restrictive 5 pillars that are confining people. Like they don't necessarily associate their doctrines and creeds and
As restrictive.
as restrictive,
Yeah.
right? So they would just point that back to Judaism, where we sort of interpret it as all religious systems that confine, that lack the power to transform.
Right.
Yeah. So
Well, it's like you said, if the good news is not good news for everyone, then it's not good news. Like
That's right.
I quote that line a lot.
Yeah.
So which takes me to towards the end of your talk, you talked about like how we accept a lot of different people here, and including couples who are in a homosexual relationship. Laura and I actually got a text from someone asking, because they were having a conversation with their mother-in-law, and they were just like, how do we have this conversation? Because she's very like, the Bible says this is wrong. So I said, you know what, I'm going to bring it up to one more thing and see if there's any kind of resources that we could provide. But basically, she brought up 2 different examples within the Bible saying, what about Sodom and Gomorrah? And what about the fact that God created Adam and Eve? And what would your response be to, Christians who are kind of still holding on to this idea of homosexuality as a sin. They should be wrong. You should pray the gay away. All those different things.
Go for it.
Yeah, I think there's no substantive evidence for that at all. I mean, just read a modern genetics book, and it'll show you that there could have never been a time where there was just one human man and one human woman.
Right.
I think there's a lot of metaphor there for that.
So Adam and Eve is not even.
It's
Right.
not it's not to be taken literal.
No.
Right.
So
And I think that the focus on the literalism is part of that 5-pillar constriction of our development and growth and healing. And Sodom and Gomorrah, I mean, just read. You can read the New Testament, and it shows why. That because it was the lack of hospitality as to why it was.
It was
why
a
it
very
was
extreme
destroyed.
example. I mean, you're talking
right.
about these people
Yeah, no.
knocking down the door to rape an angel. Like, you know, it was an extreme circumstances
But
scenario.
is that a literal story too?
Sure.
So that's,
Yeah.
and I think that at least the question has to be asked. And people say, well, if you're just going to make everything, literal or not, and I go, well, that's part of the scholarship is trying to dig in and find out what's the point. Every book, every story is there for a function. What is the function? And I don't think that story is about bashing homosexuals.
Right.
But jumping to more of a New Testament perspective of Jesus, he always came to the marginalized. He always came to those who were the woman caught in adultery, the tax collector, all those that the religious system said, you're lacking, and Jesus spent time with them, and he valued them. And I think the expression, you always have been and always will be a child of God is true no matter what your sexual persuasion. And we had a conversation with someone in the Grand Hall.
That's right.
Afterwards, he said, my son is gay, and he said, I want him to come here. And he said, well, but I don't go to church because they say, oh, we're all inclusive. But when you get here, you want to fix me, or you want to, change me. And that's just not our MO.
And his son has a PhD from like Harvard University and did post-grad work at Cambridge and is a literature major.
Yeah.
So he knows like the underlying sort of like this is not a literal story. This is metaphor. This is allegory.
Right.
And yet every experience at different churches who said, oh, everyone's welcome over time, once they found out his sexual orientation, tried to fix him in some way.
It was a trap.
Yeah.
And we just don't live in that trap.
Right.
So for those who would say, well, what about this? What about this? I'd say be very careful the scriptures you use to support your position, because there are many other scriptures that go the other way.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, that set the scripture aside for a minute and just say, what about what's good for the heart of humanity? Where's the compassion and the love and the kindness? And those are guiding principles that, I think come from God, that are even above beyond the literal stories that we have that have been around through the ages. So at some point, and I think this is where Suncoast was going to make a difference in the world, because this loving concept that I think dominates everything we are, it's just not tied to a specific fundamentalist viewpoint or a scripture. We want to grow into the presence and life of God, and becoming a little more mystical, but also taking a little more liberties where liberty should be taken. And I think that's fair ground. That's
and I think just
grounded.
as our knowledge and understanding of these texts and the cultural meanings and relevancies that we learn over the years, those have to be applied, right? And that's what you guys do. You guys are staying on top of the new scholarship that's coming out and your understanding from when you were in school. And just trying to be as intellectually honest as you possibly can. Try not to hold on to any sort of bias and understanding of like how you view a text, and with new information that comes out and new understanding, this is a new way to look at this text. And I think that's really important.
No, and I this gets a little audacious. Forgive me for this, but sometimes we are setting the bar for new scholarship.
Yeah.
Sometimes we are the point.
That's right.
People are coming to us saying, "I like what you're saying. Help me." And it's not, and I say this not it sounds audacious. I don't mean for it to be, but we really have discovered in our lifetime there is so much more, and we're just tapping in. And we want to be the place where people come and find the resource of life, the river flowing full of grace and love. And a lot of scholarship today, as I see it, is so confined to these right-wing conservative groups. Although there are some others. There's the used to be the Sayings of Jesus. Now it's called West Star Institute, and I mean they're cutting edge of what I think should be. But so we're I think in the right group at the right time.
Yeah.
So but we appreciate the opportunity to teach, and also we appreciate a community that loves us, even when we say something they may not agree with.
Yeah.
They love us, and they give us the benefit of the doubt. And we're not out to kick people in the shins. We're just simply say, hey, let go of the things that keep you so dragged down,
right.
and rise up and live.
Yeah.
I think that's what's beautiful as well, is that when you have people who return to Suncoast, even after hearing something they may not agree with, it shows that their heart's in the right place and that they're open to learn. And they say, I don't have it all figured out. I believe this way about this, but I'm amenable to change.
Yeah.
And that's what's beautiful about this place. And people who are like, no, this is wrong, then you kind of vote with your feet, so to speak. Like, I want to go to a place that affirms this particular bias. You can do that. But I said it from the stage, like, we have people who come here who identify as Buddhists, who identify as Wiccan, who identify as atheists, and even skeptics. But there's something about this place that draws them back, and I think it's our openness to learn. And that's what Dr. Baucom says all the time, is like, don't ask me what I believe today, because it may change tomorrow.
Right.
As I learn and as we grow.
But I think that's the important part, right?
Absolutely.
Is that, like, Suncoast isn't for everyone, but everyone can come to Suncoast.
That's right.
And I think that if we create that environment, I think you guys do an amazing job of doing that.
So we invite people to come on the journey with us.
Exactly.
We do not claim to be definitive about everything.
Yeah.
But we'll say that we are learning along with you, and we'll try to give you the best, honest to God truth that we know in that moment. But as our understanding changes, and it does, it grows, and it should be growing.
Yeah.
That we're authentic about who we are. We don't rebuke those who don't agree with us. We simply say, hey, maybe, as Paul said, there's a more excellent way.
Yeah.
Maybe if you just look at it a variety of ways, you'll find, this is what I think, but I'm open to that. Ryan used to say, he'd say, well, what do you think about? Tell me this. I said, Ryan, there's 4 perspectives on this. This, or this. He goes, well, give me one of them. I said, well, this, or this, or this, or this. So which one do you believe? Well, I think this one's good for here. This one's good for here. And you just go through them, because
that's right.
It's the more absolute you get, and probably is not our best perspective. I mean, our best output. But I really am on the journey.
Yeah.
I'm on the journey, and I'm still learning. And having Troy here, it's iron sharpens iron.
100%.
He's teaching me some things. I'm teaching him some things. We're learning some things from you. I mean,
From
we're
me?
learning. Yeah,
What do I know?
Yeah, we are. We are. I mean,
Absolutely,
what
man.
kind of razor do you use? That's amazing.
Yeah. No, I would love to say that I accidentally put the wrong one on, but, it was just, it was
But
good.
there are things we learned as we were in dialogue. I mean, Ryan Baucom, Brett, you, Troy, me, just really even Kevin on set, Kevin Kaiser, Susan. I mean, there's a great conversation that's ongoing.
Yeah.
And then we move in the children's area and say, we're trying to teach a story to kids. What do you think? And we try to give some insights into the story that would make it child friendly. Because some of the stories, you just cannot teach. That a whole civilization was wiped out, and then say that's because God wanted it that way.
That's right.
Yeah.
It just presents a wrong view. But anyway, I've digressed. But it is great. It's great to be in a place where in a community where the love is there, the kindness is there, the freedom is there.
Yeah.
And we like to think there's some scholarship there.
No, I 100% believe there is.
And I think it's an amazing thing. You have scholars on our staff, but the way we communicate is not like you're in some sort of seminar at college. Like,
No,
we
not at
communicate in a very practical way, a very applicable way. And what's amazing is there is a commonality of vernacular in our children's youth.
Yeah.
And in what we hear from the grand stage.
Yeah, no, I would say the unity has never been stronger in the church,
I agree.
just as far as the different areas, because there's a lot of stuff going on. So
There is, but thank you, Rick, for what you do.
man.
Sometimes we
Absolutely
talk
do.
about the teaching, but the music that happens on the weekend, we get up, people are fired up, they're attentive, they're excited, and it's kind of like the best appetizer before the meal is served, or the best meal before the dessert served. Depends on how you want to look at it.
That's right.
But it takes a whole group to make it work,
Yeah.
and we couldn't do it by ourselves.
That's right.
And we are so grateful for the whole team, and just having this venue. I couldn't do this, but it's what you guys in the creative team put together for us, and we're deeply appreciative. So
Yeah,
thank
no,
you.
we're all super blessed. I mean, we pinch ourselves that we get to do this every day,
Yep.
Yeah.
as a job, and and that's just because of your leadership. So we appreciate that.
Amen.
This is a
Absolutely.
team, and we love this place, and I wish more people would come and check us out. Just
They
because
are.
it's
They
so
will.
special.
Oh, yeah.
It's so special, and we try to tell. And you're like the biggest recruiter for Suncoast, so you're telling everyone about
Yes.
it. But did you guys have anything? I know with dialogue, a lot of stuff gets left out. You have to, because your time restraints. Was that mainly the John?
Yeah,
Okay.
just the John thing. I wanted
Yeah.
to see those 5 colonnade.
Yes.
Yeah,
Little-
no, that's
Little
very
brilliant
insight
stuff.
that you
Yeah.
might not get. So
So awesome. Well, thank you for being on the One More Thing. Appreciate you guys.
no,
Absolutely.
our pleasure. Thank you.